Good evening, good night, Ray Bright, your executive coach, and this is the ICDAIM Burnout series. So we're talking about everything burnout, and today we're looking at 5 benefits of a work-play balance. You heard me correctly. I don't believe in work-life balance. I genuinely don't, and this is something that you may agree with me or not. It's cool, whichever philosophy works for you, but for me, it doesn't make logical sense. Work and life are not at the same level as each other on hierarchy. Life involves everything, and work comes under life for me. And so the phrase I prefer to use instead of work-life balance, because it makes it seem like work is as important as life, is work-play balance, and finding the balance between those two to support your life. Um, for example, is it hobbies, or is it anything that is fun and anything that doesn't require an outcome? For example, that is how I describe play versus work. And for example, work doesn't necessarily need to be for money. Play doesn't necessarily need to be without money. It's just the outcome, right? So for me, play is so important. It talks about everything between imagination, creativity. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But one of the things I've noticed is the older we get, the less play there is. We start to get like swamped by all these responsibilities. You may have work responsibilities, family responsibilities. You got to keep a roof over your head and eat. And then things get very, very serious after a while. Like I'm in my late 30s now, and part of what I've noticed is it's actually a conscious effort to bring play back into life, because you wake up and you're thinking about work and your deadlines. You go and do your work and you might meet your friends and stuff, but then otherwise you come home and if you have a side hustle, forget about it, and it's easy to find yourself down a road where there's no space or capacity for play. But play is quite literally designed to help relieve stress. And when it comes to burnout, as we know, stress is the source of it, right? Stress by itself is manageable, and sometimes it's even healthy, right? Prolonged stress is or a chronic stress is when it becomes a real problem. When you don't deal with chronic stress, that's when you experience burnout. And one of the things that can help stop the first domino from falling is having enough of a balance between work, which can often provide the stress, and play, which often relieves the stress. So that's why I put those two in equal balance as opposed to work and life. And what you find without having enough play um, is things start going in grayscale instead of technicolor. Um, I was talked about earlier about the difference between work and play. One of the important things is the idea of a tangible result with work versus an intangible result with play, and realizing they're both valuable. So, for example, work, your tangible result might be you get paid, you pay your bills, you be able to um, meet the deadlines and do the drawings for work, or whatever you do. Um, with play, the intangible result is joy. For example, it's peace. It is a good night's sleep. It is exhausting your physical energy so you can actually sleep well, and your immune system gets stronger. All those things, right? You can't necessarily tick off the box and say, okay, this is complete, but there is a very real benefit to you in the body. So let's talk about that. So today we're looking at 5 benefits of a work play balance. So the first one is going to be preventing burnout. Like I said before, um, burnout comes from stress that is prolonged, that isn't managed. So then, in terms of maintaining a healthy work play balance, it's crucial in preventing it. You do it by prioritizing relaxation time, hobbies, social activities, and spaces where you can recharge after experiencing stress. And I want to go back to that word, prioritizing it. It's very easy to prioritize the work side and not prioritize play. If there's an opportunity to make money, for example, it will take precedent over your time. But sometimes for the balance to occur, we need to actually take a step back and say, no, I actually need to do something fun. And I actually do need to rest. I actually do need to pause. Um, I think when we were talking about sleep and relaxation, I said it that we can sometimes feel like we've got too much to do to take time off, for example, right? But then there's another way of looking at it is we've got too much to do not to take time off. Because if we don't take time off, then we won't have the capacity, we won't be recharged, we won't have the energy to do the things we actually need to do. And then the things we need to do will suffer. And play is a part of that as well. Like if you don't give yourself time to play, then you will lose the joy. And losing the joy means you lose the energy in work. And you really have to step back and look at it as a full picture. You as a being, as opposed to a employee, as opposed to a CEO, as opposed to a founder, whatever it is. You as a human being, look at you in the whole self to be able to see how clear this is. Is when you put yourself separately as as work being just as important as life. And that case, then play has no role in this. It's only when you look at things that way that you only see the tangible benefits of work, which can drive you to prioritizing that and that only. Um, Overwork has negative benefit. Well, there's no benefits. It has a negative effect otherwise. Right. So you've got 8 hours in your day, weekday, for working. Right. There's a reason why there's 2 days off that we call a weekend. It's for rest, right? Some people might argue we need 3 days off, which is fine. Like, if you're able to work that out with your work, that's even better. Negotiate that. See what you can get. Prove to your employers that you can create just as much value to them in 4 days as you can in 5, and do it consistently as evidence that you can take that 5th day off, which can give you more time for rest, more time for play, more time to spend time with your family and friends, more time to spend with your children at home. One of the things that I've may have spoken about before, but maybe not on this platform, is the idea about paternity leave being so short is wild to me. That I need to apply for 2 or 3 weeks off when my child has just been born and then get back to work. As a man, for me, logically, it is one of the reasons why our connection with our children isn't as strong, right? So, and in that case, the reason why I'm saying that is spending child time with children is also an element of play. You realize that when you're looking at it from a child's vantage point, they're not worried about bills and taxes and the government. They're just worried about food, play, sleep. Have I been changed? And they just look at we've had a whole session about being present as well. They are just present in the moment. Everything is new to them, right? So their hands, realizing that this is actually something they control, looking around and trying to see, is that edible? Can I eat that? Is that hard? Is that soft? Is that full? What happens when I throw this thing? What sound does it make when it hits the floor? Everything is just curiosity to them, which allows them to, you hear it when they laugh in a way that adults struggle to, right? That laugh, you can hear the laugh. That's the laugh of someone who doesn't pay bills. Right? So spending time with children is just an important part of play, and spending time bringing play into your life with your family, your friends, your colleagues as well. That's one of the reasons why people bring in people like me into the workplace, to help them figure out how to create environments which is conducive to bringing play into it. Are they going on a retreat? Are they going to have a dance class in the middle of the day? Are they going to do something which is art based and paint? They're going to have a storytelling workshop that's going to bring some different energy into the room. Like all of that can release pressure. I remember I did one dance class, an Afro workout dance class, in a company which was a financial firm. Now, the stresses on this financial students of mine were wild. You can see it when they come into the space, but just having like 30 minutes of hard, like high intensity Afrobeats workout, they're dancing. These are some of the same people who wouldn't go to the gym because they don't enjoy it, but they love Afrobeats. So they'll come, we'll do a dance routine, they'll communicate with each other, they'll enjoy their time together, they'll laugh, they'll play, and then they go back to work with a new zest of energy, and their performance would increase as a result. It's a direct correlation between fun and performance and the rest of your life balance. But it can only, for me, really happen when you look at play as being just as important as work, as opposed to work being just as important as life. Make that shift and you'll see a difference immediately. So, number one in benefits of work play balance is beating burnout. Number two is enhancing creativity and productivity. I've already mentioned about the productivity part, but creativity is just as important. No matter what you do, whether it's at work, whether it's at home, whether it's within your community, creativity is everywhere. I often speak to my mom about this. She doesn't consider herself a creative person until I point out that creativity to me, for example, is your ability to find solutions to problems. It's your ability to think laterally. It's your ability to express yourself, right? And all these things don't necessarily need to come out in art. They can also come out in science. They can also come out in architecture. They can also come out in finance. Like, how are you making this interesting for yourself? Like, for example, the first time I heard about the idea of having pots for your money, for example, and creating automations so that, there was actually made it for the first time ever. It made finances kind of fun. It's like, okay, how can I make this so I can have a play jar? And this play jar, the challenge to myself is to spend everything in this play jar this month, right? No matter what I do. And this can't be used for things like food and everything like that. This has to be used for play. So this has to be used for things like going to the theater, taking my godchildren out, all that kind of stuff. That is what the play jar is for financially. But there's another jar for bills, for example. And I, consciously creating this play jar meant that I put play as part of my priority, like I put in the last point. Taking regular breaks gives you space to be creative. There's a lot of things that happen within the brain. Like, I'm not necessarily going to do a session on this, but the more I learn about the brain, the more I realize how important certain activities are. So, giving space, having breaks, allows your brain to do a lot of the extra work subconsciously that you've been consciously trying to do. It's why you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning with ideas and answers. Your brain has finally had a chance to rest. And while it resets, all the connections start going again, and it starts to connect the dots in ways that you haven't been able to do when you were consciously awake trying to do it. It's the reason why you come up with ideas in the shower, while you're driving. All these things, when your brain goes into a kind of like hiatus and it starts to do the actual real work of solving problems and creativity, that's when the ideas start flowing. It's when you take yourself away from the work desk and you start going out for a walk, for example, is when you start and you sit down in nature and you have an epiphany. That is happening because you've allowed yourself time to rest, right? And creativity is the same. When you go and do like a painting workshop or sculpting or pot making or singing or dancing, when you're doing all those things, or even going to the gym, when you're doing all those things is when you allow your brain space to be creative, and it will do the work for you. A lot of people think creativity is you sitting here and just thinking about the idea and bringing it out of nowhere. Sometimes it happens like that, but more time than not, especially with me, it's just intuition. It is, like I said, it's epiphany. Like, I'll wake up in the morning with an idea. Mom always like, how do you get all these ideas? And I'm like, they're not mine. I don't sit there and think about them most of the time. They just come to me. Like, I'll just be walking and think, why doesn't this exist? Or why doesn't this happen this way? This would be much better if this would happen. And they're just because I'm curious, because I'm allowing my mind to wander. Sometimes actually there's research to suggest that a, a, a subtle element of boredom can be just as useful to us as being physically like active all the time, because it gives us time for our mind to think, right? And so I've talked about before the opposite side of the most obvious type of burnout. Obvious type of burnout is you have a little capacity and too much to deal with. The opposite side of burnout is a lot of capacity and not enough to deal with. So you got nothing to channel your energy into, which can lead to boredom, which can lead to burnout as well, which is stress within the body. But then when you don't have enough to channel it into, then you got to create something to channel it into. And again, that's where the ideas come from. You know, you've got this energy and your mind is finding ways for you to apply it. So we talked about regular breaks and engaging in activities. Um, Certain activities can stimulate creativity, right? I mentioned those before: painting, singing, dancing, all that kind of. It can improve focus because it gives something to channel into, which gives your mind another space to work, so that when you go back into your work mode, you've got something to deal with. You've already done a lot of the work subconsciously, then brought into the conscious, and you can focus because you've gotten rid of the need for any to release any of that tension, right? Because otherwise, what happens if you don't have breaks, if you're not creative, then tension builds up because there's an energy within you that needs to be put somewhere. And if you're not finding a creative way to do it within your work, and you're not finding a creative way to do it within your play, then it has nowhere to go. And then it can force you to pay attention to it by blocking your mind receptors. You'll stop being able to think properly and think clearly. You start forgetting. It takes capacity of your cerebral processes, your thoughts, right? And when that happens, take heed. It's like, I'm not being able to think straight. Maybe I need to take a step away. Maybe I need to, go for a walk. Maybe I need to play some music and dance or shake it out, whatever it is. Do it then, right? So I talked about boosting productivity, and it balancing work with play allows your brain to recharge. I've talked about this before, and there's whole books on this about how the brain works, but it needs to recharge. Like a phone, it gets drained. And a question I would ask for you is, when you're finding yourself feeling burnt out, think to yourself, what percent am I at? And what would increase that percentage? What is it you need? And be honest with yourself. Don't try and think to yourself, oh, this is childish. And I saw that happen recently. Someone was I can't remember what exactly they were doing, but the response I heard from the woman who was on the phone to them was saying, oh, that's childish. And in my mind, I couldn't help thinking, I bet that whatever they're talking about is childish is something that person actually needs, because they wouldn't be doing it otherwise, you know? And sometimes we have this idea about what is childish and adult or like, to the point where I spoke to someone recently, the way he put it was crazy. He said, it's like we lobotomize our inner child. We cut it out and we separate it from our adult body. But the problem with that, it's like DNA. That every DNA within our body has the information for our entire self. So when you remove something, our body tells us that no, there's something missing and we need to refill it. It's like fingernails. When you cut them out, they grow back because our body knows that there's something missing. If you lobotomize your inner child, your play, it will know that there's something missing. And so you feel the need to fill it with something. And that's when people start to turn to not so healthy methods to meet that need, right? Whether it's endorphins, whether it's connection, whatever, it's all that kind of stuff that you get with play. If you don't do it with play, you'll find it with something else. Okay, so number 3, as the benefits of work-play balance, I've talked about preventing burnout, enhancing creativity. Number 3 is improving your mental health. And this connects with everything else, right? So playful activities, social interactions, leisure time, right, help reduce anxiety, depression, and feelings of isolation, and promoting overall well-being. Isolation is such a killer right now, And it sounds like a really small thing. And for those people who don't necessarily understand it, and what's ironic about it is a lot of the people who shun the idea of how important some of this are the people who need it the most. So you might be looking there thinking, why? How can someone be depressed from being alone when they're around people all the time? It makes no sense. But then look at the relationships you have in your own life. Are they deep and meaningful? It's not about just how many people you have around you. It's how many people do you trust? How many people can you spend time with? How many people do you enjoy spending time with? How many people lift you up? How many people do you lift up? How many people do you have mentally growing conversations with? How many people can you show your full self to? How many people do you feel at peace with? All of that stuff is important when it comes to your connections and beating this idea of isolation and loneliness, which can often come out when people are burnt out. They um, they become recluse, right? They isolate themselves because they don't want to be a burden to other people. They don't want to. Sometimes they may not just want social interaction, all that kind of stuff. So when they're burnt out, they'll hide away. They'll stay in bed all day. They won't eat. They won't hydrate themselves. They won't even sleep well, despite being in bed all the time. So having a good work play balance can help improve your mental health. And I just wanted to go over that just because it's so important right now, because it's again, it's going back to the intangible results of all of this. If you want to be performing well at work, with your partner, with your children, with your friends and family, it's important to bring play into it. And I had a conversation with a friend of mine recently, and he was being honest with me, as he always is. And he was saying, like, you know what, if there's not an outcome, I don't really feel that, I don't really understand the point of doing it. And I was like, okay, cool. So how would you define outcome? It's like, okay, yeah, am I getting paid for this? Is it gonna enrich my life? And I was like, okay, cool. What about enriching your life? Like, how do you define that? And there's an element of enriching life which he said was about, learning and getting better at something and honing your craft, etc. And I was like, okay, is that the only way to enrich your life? What happens if that's all you do? Like, how do you feel when you get creative, all that kind of stuff? If you reduce that completely, you'll be a shell of yourself, which is what was actually happening at the time, right? So that's number three, improving mental health. Number four is strengthening relationships. Now, we all know that when it comes to play, especially team sports, it builds connection. And a lot of corporate use team sports as a way to bring rapport into the workplace to help build the culture. That's a tangible way of looking at it, right? But it strengthens relationships. When there's you can you basically build relationships by having experiences together. And a lot of the time, if you're not bringing play into your lifestyle, then the only way to build connections and relationships is through difficulty, right? It's through stress. And yes, that can help build bonds. It's if you go through something really terrible together, there's data to support how much that brings people together. But let that not be the only way you make connections, right? They go out for a walk together, go to say date your friends, right? Date yourself, take yourself out to the cinema to a paint by one of the things I got recently, really randomly, was a paint by number set. You can order this online, right? A paint by number set, and I chose the backgrounds I wanted. And I had to get an easel separately, but it came with the paints, it came with the canvas, it came with the numbers, and it was just time for me to paint. And it was so good to be able to do that. But then it was good to be able to invite someone to share that experience with me. And we could talk, we could have beverages while we're doing it. We laughed, we played, all that kind of stuff. And it was just an amazing evening. And it was something really simple, but allowing myself to do that and bring that into the situation helped build that connection, that relationship with that person, because it was something that you don't do every day, and it was fun. And we got an opportunity to talk. We got an opportunity to ask each other questions, because you're not just painting at the time. Obviously, you're doing that, but then also like you're seeing what each other care about. You're seeing what you've missed about each other. And like we could have done that on the phone. Yes, we could have done that, but doing it in person and over an activity that's creative just built so much more connection. So it strengthens relationships, investing in time and investing time in leisure activities, right? And this is with friends, family, and colleagues. I mentioned about corporate using this. We can use it with our family as well. Like take your family, your brothers, your sisters, your parents, your children out to the beach. Like can you and bring the kites, bring the blow up balls, bring the frisbees, all that kind of stuff. Go to the park together, have a fun day, get a marquee and have some time as a family, as a colleague, as a team, whatever that might be to you. And it helps build the supportive networks. So one of the things I find with this is when you do find yourself in a situation where you're able to have these kind of experiences with people, they are there for you and you are there for them because you've connected on a different level. I remember seeing this infographic of the depths of relationships, and at the top it's you talk about facts, and it's just what is. It's raining right now. How are you? I'm fine, right? And then it goes opinions, is what you think about certain things. And then it goes to emotions, how you feel about certain things and how you feel now in the moment, how you really feel. And then it's your insecurities, what are you not confident about, all that kind of stuff. When you spend time with people, you find yourself gradually going deeper and deeper and deeper into this matrix because time builds trust with people. You tend to feel more comfortable in their presence. Do your energies align? Do you have the same beliefs and value systems? All of that happens from creating environments where you can connect, and doing things over a creative practice is a great way to do that. um I mentioned about emotional support and sense of community. Community is so important. I mentioned that as a way of fighting against isolation, which can lead to burnout, which can exacerbate burnout as well. So the last thing, so remember, this is 5 benefits of a work-play balance, not a work-life balance. Number 1 is it prevents burnout. Number 2 is it enhances creativity, which you can then bring back into work and all the rest of it. Number 3 is it improves your mental health. Number 4 is it strengthens relationships. And number 5, just in general, is it improves your quality of life. One of the things I really like to use as a tool when working with a coaching client is the wheel of life. Now, the wheel of life is a circle, and it looks like a wheel. You've got the dot in the middle. You've got all the spokes, and each of the spokes are a different element of your life: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, um, career, for example. But one of them is recreation, and that is really important because it actually gives it a physical space within your life. Are you having enough fun? And as a balance with the wheel of life is good because each spoke is between 0 and 10. And the idea is at any moment, any given moment in time, any month, any year, any day, you can fill out this wheel and think to yourself, am I feeling like a naught? Where in between 0 to 10 am I feeling that where I am financially, where I'm feeling in terms of career or professionally? I'm feeling in terms of mentally, emotionally, spiritually, in terms of friends, family. And then it can show you if you're at 4, for example, it shows that there's a need there. If you stop and do that exercise and you realize that everything is a 10 instead of, as opposed to and not fun or play, you might realize that you've been stressed all this time and be wondering why. Maybe it's because of that. Maybe you haven't given yourself a creative outlet. Maybe it's because you haven't given yourself time to enjoy life. Maybe you haven't given yourself enough of a pause to actually look around and smell the roses and daisies and enjoy the fact that you're in nature and you can look after yourself. There's a lot of the stuff we do which is trying to keep up with the Joneses. Like you get an you get a promotion, you get a pay rise, and so you switch up your life to be able to meet that new barometer instead of using it as a larger cushion and allowing yourself to go and enjoy life. The reason why I'm saying this is because this often happens when you're doing negotiations with work, and you're one of the only things that people look like sometimes, or back in the day, is what am I being paid? What's my salary? And that is compensation. And I get it. That is a tangible compensation to your work, etc. But it doesn't equate to your quality of life. What is the use of having lots of money if you're depressed? And we see that all the time. There's people who take their lives, there's people who become isolated, the people who walk around looking at shells of themselves despite having all this money. Their personalities whack, they're angry all the time, or they don't seem to enjoy anything anymore, right? Even the house that they've got for themselves, which other people would absolutely kill to be able to step into, they don't appreciate anymore. So what's the use of that? What's your quality of life by having so much money but not being able to enjoy life? And so one of the things they often look at is how else can they bring that quality of life? Is it your time to yourself, with your family, your friends? Is it being able to give back to your community and volunteer at a charity? Is it that you're going to don't know, is it that you're going to have a hobby and put yourself into tasks that allow yourself to do something physical? Is it that you're going to write a letter to your friends instead of email or text message to get that personal touch to it? Like, what is it that you're going to do which can improve your quality of life? And really think about that. Take a step back and think to yourself, what is it that makes me feel full? Not just in terms of, stomach, but in life. What is it at the times when I felt the most at balance, that most like I didn't want to change anything? What were the things that were happening within my life that were causing that in that period of time? You know, for me, there's definitely that element of play. It's about going out and I like giving back as part of it. So, and I don't necessarily feel like it's work sometimes when I'm teaching my house dance classes. It doesn't feel like I enjoy it. Like, I actually look forward to teaching it because I know that I'm going to be able to laugh and create some interesting exercises with them and listen to music I love, and the energy within the studio is going to be great. So I know that even though it's, for some it might just be work, for me it's play because I enjoy it and I see it as fun. And then the money comes as a result, and that's even better, right? So enhancing quality of life, paying attention to what it is you're doing that is giving you life, quality of life, and what is it you're doing that's taking away from it, and actually sitting back and thinking, how can I change this? And that can happen in different ways. Number one is you can remove something that's not bringing good quality of life, right? Number two is you can add things that are. But number three that I wanted to share with you is that how can you make something that isn't giving you a good quality of life into something that is? So one of those things is, like, for example, let's say, for example, work is something that is taking away from my quality of life right now. It's too stressful or whatever. How can I bring fun into my daily life at work? How can I bring fun into it? You know, how can I bring a different experience to it? Can I maybe work remotely on one of the days and work at using the Wi-Fi at a beach? Can I um, get a few of my friends around and they can all come to mine and have a work day together? They'll all use the Wi-Fi. We'll all be at different parts of the house and we'll just chat in our breaks. We'll be able to work. We'll have regular breaks. We'll have lunch together and we'll get back to work. We'll discuss things, all that kind of stuff. Is that something that's going to make me feel differently? If I'm in the office, for example, is there a way for me to take regular breaks that allow me to do something fun? Am I going to walk around the block and listen to a podcast that makes me laugh? Am I going to play games on my phone on my breaks, which will take my mind away from the task at hand, so I can chill for a little bit? Now, what is it that I can do within the day itself that would release the tension, the stress, so that it can improve my quality of life? Because quality of life is not just removing everything that's bad and adding everything is good. It's managing the things that are causing the stress. If you can get rid of the stress from the task, then the task itself won't overwhelm you. And overwhelm, as we know, is one of the things that leads to burnout. So, just recapping over the 5 benefits of work-play balance as a tool of beating burnout is: number one is it prevents burnout fully. Number two is it enhances creativity. Number three is it improves your mental health. Number four, it strengthens relationships. And number five is it enhances your quality of life. And I did mention the wheel of life. If you haven't heard about that before, have a look at it. Use it as a tool. It's something I use all the time. It's really good to take stock of your life as a whole. And one of the good things is, although there is a specific way of doing things, and there are versions of this which have um, each spoke has a different thing, you can create your own, and you can list to yourself, what are 10 things that are really important to me in terms of my life, and use them as your spokes. Where am I on a scale of 1 to 10 on giving back? And that can be something. And you can see when the numbers are low, maybe it's time to actually look at what can bring that up in a moment. And these things can change. One of the things that is really interesting is looking at how that changes over time. Like, okay, in this period of life, I was really low financially, but I had great quality of life. I was loving life. And this moment, I had a promotion. I hadn't had this much money in all my life, but I was depressed. I was so stressed with everything. It's like, okay, what's going on within there? And what can I do to change that? All right. Now I'm giving, as always, I say, I'm giving you all these tips, all these tricks, because you and I both know that these things, we know what to do really. My role as a coach is help you implement them. So if you need help in doing that, if you've tried things and they failed, if you've got all this information, you understand how the brain works, but you still can't get yourself to change your behavior or to say no to things to allow you space to say yes to what things you want to do. If you feel like you've lost control or you don't have control in your daily life to be able to create a work-play balance, if you feel like things are too stressful or you don't have time or you don't appreciate the place part of life, if you need someone to help you bring that back and bring that balance, get in touch. Get in touch with me. DM me if you're on Instagram. If you're on LinkedIn or YouTube, you can book a call with me using this QR code or this one that was up here. They're both the same, I think. So use this as a way to get in touch with me. Let's talk. Let's chat. Let's chat. It's going to be a 30-minute session. All we're going to do is look through what is you're experiencing right now, how bad it is, and I might drop you a tip, something you can tangibly use in your life, which will have an immediate help. But if you do that and you realize there's more that you need, or you need more continual support, then we can look at how you can become a client. I'm only really accepting, there's 12 clients at a time. There's one group coaching program I do, which is for 8 people, and then there's space for 4 one-to-one clients, and that's it at any one time. After that, I'm not able to give you the attention you need. So if you want to be one of those people, get in touch. We'll see how it can help. And just book that call. Book that call is all I'll say. So tomorrow we're back again, similar kind of time, somewhere between 6 and 7. And we're going to go through another element of burnout. And again, if there's something that is worth it for you, something that you find useful, comment in the chats, share it with people. Let people know this is something that's going on. I'm only doing it for this month because it's Mental Health Awareness Month. After that, I'm going to go back to regular programming and go back to coaching. So see you all tomorrow. It's been awesome.